So let's talk about a tool that completely changed the game for Java developers, Spring Boot. Have you ever had that feeling where you're spending way more time setting up a project than, actually building the cool stuff? If that sounds familiar, you're going to love this. We're going to dig into why Spring Boot was even created and how it became so indispensable. Let's jump in. If you're a developer, you know this feeling deep in your soul. You've got this amazing idea, you're all fired up to code, but then reality hits. You have to spend hours, sometimes days, just wrestling with configuration files and getting the project scaffolding right. It honestly felt like the job wasn't building the app, it was just getting permission to start.
To really get why Spring Boot was such a lightning strike, we gotta hop in the time machine and go back to the days of the original Spring framework. Now, don't get me wrong, it was unbelievably powerful, but all that power came with a whole lot of complexity.
And this right here perfectly sums up the struggle. On the left, that's your dream, just build that killer new feature. But the reality, on the right, you were just drowning in endless XML files, manually wiring every little piece of your app together, and praying that your library versions didn't start a fight with each other. The fun part felt miles away.
It was, and I'm not exaggerating, a configuration nightmare. You had these huge, sprawling XML files that were all tangled together. Every single component of your application, what Spring calls a bean, had to be spelled out by hand. And the worst part? One little typo. A single misplaced character in 1,000 lines of XML, and your entire application would just refuse to start. Oh, and you also had to set up and configure your own web server separately. It was a lot.
So the bottom line was this. Developer productivity was just tanking. All that initial friction meant the creative, value-driven part of the job, the actual coding, was constantly being pushed to the back burner.
But out of all that frustration came a really powerful philosophy: convention over configuration. The idea is actually pretty simple, but it's a total game changer. It says a framework should be smart. It should make sensible default choices for you. Like, if you add a web library, it should just assume you need a web server, right? It shouldn't make you spell it out. It's all about letting you focus on what makes your app special, not the stuff everyone has to do.
And that philosophy paved the way for the hero of our story, Spring Boot. It was designed from the ground up to solve these exact problems. It was the automation layer that developers had been dreaming of.
Now, this is a really important point. Spring Boot didn't throw out the old Spring framework. No way. It built right on top of all that power and flexibility. It just added this brilliant, intelligent layer of automation to handle all that tedious setup work for you.
So, what does this automation actually do? Well, it's pretty incredible. Spring Boot literally looks at the other libraries and tools you're using in your project and just configures them for you. It manages all the versions to make sure they play nicely together, it wires up all the necessary components, and, maybe the most famous feature, it packs in a ready-to-go web server so you can run your entire application with a single click. No setup required.
Okay, so this all sounds a little bit like magic, right? Well, it's not. Let's pull back the curtain and demystify how Spring Boot's so-called opinions actually work.
Just remember this. This is the before picture. In the old days, a simple web app could easily require hundreds of lines of XML configuration just to get it to say hello world. It was a massive barrier to just getting started. And with Spring Boot, all of that gets replaced with this. A single line of code that kicks the whole thing off. The difference is just staggering. And here it is, the star of the show, @Spring Boot application. You put this one little annotation at the top of your main application file, and that's it. That's the signal that tells Spring Boot, okay, you're in charge now, go do your thing.
So what is that one line really doing? Well, it's actually a bundle of 3 incredibly powerful commands. First, @configuration tells Spring, hey, this file has setup instructions. Then, @component_scan tells it to go look for all the other components and services you've written in your project. And then the real powerhouse, @enable auto-configuration, is the one that tells Spring Boot to start intelligently guessing what you need based on the libraries you've included.
This is what people mean when they say Spring Boot is opinionated. It has a strong prepackaged opinion about the best way to get things started. For example, its opinion is that if you're building a web app, you probably want the Tomcat server, so it just gives it to you. This saves a ton of time. But here's the beautiful part. If you don't like its opinion, you can just tell it to do something different. You get all the speed up front with all the flexibility you need later on. And this chart is the payoff. This is what it all leads to. Look at that shift. Before Spring Boot, most of your time is sunk into configuration. With Spring Boot, that whole equation gets flipped on its head. Now you can spend your time where it actually counts, building awesome features.
So let's bring it all home. Why does this matter so much? Because Spring Boot represents a fundamental change in focus for developers, away from the boring mechanics of wiring and setup and toward the joy of creation.
If you remember just one thing, let it be this simple formula. You take the raw power of the Spring framework, you add a brilliant automation engine, and you guide the whole thing with the philosophy of convention over configuration. And what you get is Spring Boot. It's the fastest way to get from an idea to a running application, period. And this table just lays it out so clearly. The problem was that heavy manual XML setup. The solution is auto-configuration, and the benefit for you is that you're coding in minutes. The problem was needing an external server. The solution is a built-in server, and the benefit is you just hit run. It all boils down to a massive shift in focus, from wiring things up to actually building business logic, which means you're just way more productive. And in the end, it really comes down to this. This became the unofficial motto for Spring Boot, and for good reason. It perfectly captures the promise it makes to every developer. It took away the biggest headaches and let you get straight to the good stuff. So the only question left is, what are you going to build with all that time you just got back?